Well, we are at 14.5 live streaming hours, and I'm very glad to welcome here Raffaella Colombo. Ciao Raffaella. Welcome.
Ciao Alessandro.
We are both in the shadow, both in the dark, because it's midnight. And as it is of 24 hours, that means that comes from the morning to another morning, and there is a night in between, and that's life.
Exactly.
So that's why
it's exactly the time that I love. That is 0000, when the night is starting and the day is arriving.
Perfect. So we are not at the end of the night, but at the beginning of the day, as you say.
Of course.
Is it correct? It's nice to host Raffaella. That is is a professor in Polimi. Is a Polimi alumni, and she is also she's one of the most clever landscape architects that you internationally recognize, and she's a professor at KEA in Copenhagen, Design School of Design and Technology, and is from Copenhagen that she is connected for this 24-hour worldwide design conversation. And we had a very interesting experience with Raffaella, because in the landscape design course in the last, 2 years, we had the opportunity to work with a master student, and we proposed to apply the design for landscape, so in big urban spaces, we apply the landscape in the term of urban landscape, but with a special care of urban feeling. So not just taking consideration about physical or technical quality, but also considering and injecting human feeling in urban environments. Probably that's also one of the reasons because Raffaella proposed as a keyword the keyword passione in Italian for our multi-language workbook. That is very appreciated to switch from different languages. And well, I leave to our guest the floor to explain why passione in this as a topic.
Yes, so thank you very much for this invitation. I really appreciate it very much. And I choose passione, and I will try to explain you exactly through some slides that I prepare. Because passione is the really, for me, controversial word. So, yeah. I think, no, that something doesn't work.
I think, okay.
Could you see?
Yes.
Perfect.
We can see. Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, to start, I thought about many different words in Italian to understand, for example, the sense of passion related with this specific moment, no, that we are living, that are correlazione, alterità, imprevisto, rischio, trauma, imperfetto, reattività, esplorazione, disallineamento, inatteso, inciampo, affidarsi, progetto, passione, incertezza, possibilità, fragilità, collettivo, isolato, io, l'altro, noi. E partendo da una domanda, and I started just from one question that made me feel crazy, because it's like an obsession, is try to understand why or if 7 is the same for everyone. And this was a question that Pablo Neruda tried to answer. So it started with passion, and from the etymological Latin, passio, passionis, it derives from passus, that means to suffer and to endure. So we have many different meanings about passion, but in one of meanings there is a real contraposition with action, and it describes the condition of passivity, suffering emotional and physical effects that, for me, is something that we felt during, for example, this very heavy period after and during the COVID. And in other contemporary meanings, passion describes an intense and something violent feeling, mostly related to attraction or repulsion towards something or someone. In this specific meaning, when passione is violent, can disturb physical balance and abilities of discernment and control. And this is excellent, no? You lose your control. In other meaning, passione describes a strong irrational interest or desire for someone or something, capable of dominating a person. So passion is a wide word. To burn for passion, to be blind for passion, to live with passion, to die for passion, to be alive for passion, and to follow dreams with passion, to work with passion, because passion is exactly for you. That's why I tried also to understand, and I asked students to give me some words related to these specific periods. And students spoke about abandon, loneliness, introspection, memories, hope, noise, silence, solitude, finding, belief, community, nostalgia, possibility, quietness, rediscovering, peace, visibility, regret, fusion, individual, and waiting. We were in front of a new sense of solitude, but it's completely different, a selected solitude from a forced solitude. That's why this period remember me also one of the first inscriptions inside the territories that was done by humans to protect themselves from nature and from yes, the wild and bad nature outside. So this is one of the first sense to be protected. And this was another very interesting picture related with the history of gardens, where we can see the Hortus Academicus, a specific place completely protected from what was out of those walls, so the wild nature and what was unpredictable. And this is one of the most scientific and controlled gardens, like this one, Hortus conclusus, from Hortus Gardinum, Wart Gard, that means to be completely surrounded by fences. So those fences protected the house, and it was related with the garden, so an anthropic construction, exactly as the city or our houses. So we were protected inside our houses. But this was also a weird situation, because we were in front, of course, of a situation where we were alone, but at the same time with our family, but without our friends and communities, and maybe other beloved people. So we had to face a new sense of community, and the sense of community at the end was an inside, an interior, and no anymore outside. So I started again to think about that 7, because 7 was not only a number, and of course the numbers, the data that we read, they were completely different for each of us, because to see or to read 686, maybe it's only a number, But in Lombardy or around Milan, that number was a dumb number because it described many died people, beloved people, old people. Maybe 714 was nothing for someone. But the day after, where other people died, and it was not a number. Each number has many names behind and people suffering. So we started also to understand that we are not alone, we are part of a community, but at the same time, how we could stay in a community without staying physically with others. And that we needed to have a respect and we needed to understand others to help them staying at home. And it was not easy at all, no? It speaks about our resilience. So we started to understand how we could face those problems. It was a real trauma for a lot of people because houses and homes, maybe they're not the right place for many people or where they feel to stay good and in healthy and well. And we also had to understand that we needed to protect ourselves and others with some tools. But those were only tools. We had to face, and we still have to face, what was urgent. And of course, we started to accept many tools and to see also in public spaces new design. But this is something that made me think a lot, and I don't like at all this kind of design, because it speaks about isolation. But I don't want to see this in public spaces, because for me public spaces is exactly like a home for communities. So was very hard for me to accept. And also this picture that is something so nice because it speaks another time about solitude and selected solitude, but at the same time, public space is exactly the contrary, is a place for everyone where I can see the sense of a stronger community or different communities living together. Because we need to have human relations. Before building everything, we need to build new human relations. This is a sense for me to design in public spaces and to think about new urban landscapes. So I started to look at many screens like this one, and to see people inside. And of course, this was a very important technology because we could face many problems and to stay in contact with many people, and they try to support us, etc. I couldn't see, for example, my students in person during this second semester. So I gave a lecture in front of one screen without looking at my students, their faces, and this was what they call the new normality. For me, it's not a normality at all. What I would like is to come back to touch people, to stay with people, and to look at people. This is, of course, a new, even if it's not so new, because with many social, we met people, virtual people, of course, new meetings, but this is not enough. That's why I think about also the beauty of contrariety and dissimilitude and incongruity. And this was a nice temporary installation by an artist, Italian artist, Giuliano Mauri, and it was to let people feel what, for example, animals they can perceive if they live in a strong fence or blocked, like in a temporary house. And this was the contradiction, because we were in that situation. On the contrary, on the right picture, you can see 3 animals around. So, in university, and not only, I started to think with students which kind of new nature we want to rethink, and which is the importance to stay, for example, close to the nature and closer to the nature. But we are nature, so we also need to understand it, that we can't have the control of everything. And how we want to improve another kind of nature? Which kind of relation do we want now with nature? And what is nature? Which kind of animals? Because we say, well, if we are inside in houses, all the animals now can arrive. So we saw beautiful animals all around the cities, etc. But for us, we can't be so selective to say those are beautiful animals, so we want them inside the cities, but we don't want other animals, for example, because they are not nice, etc. What is the wild nature, and which are now still, again, for example, the barriers that we want to build up, or that with the new design we want to avoid, we want to destroy? The labyrinth. And inside the houses, we understood that maybe we need a new flexibility, because if we want to work at home, we need something maybe different, and at the same time we need also to have more greeneries. So maybe the new houses will be related also with the indoor gardens. And of course, the house sometimes can protect us, but at the same time can't. So many people didn't live this period in a very nice situation with a kind family, etc. So this was another huge problem. And I want also to think about almost inextricable. What is this inextricable? I thought a lot about it, and I try to understand that we can't have absolutely the control of everything. So we have to accept that we can manage maybe the challenge to shape the chaos of the city, the chaos that we can find inside the cities. And we have to understand that we have many complex systems. So nature is part of this complex system, and we can't have the control on nature. Coronavirus is part of the nature, as, for example, many different forces of the nature. So I introduced this topic in universities, in different universities. So nature is the new rebel citizen, and we have to accept it. With new urban landscape visionary ideas and feelings, mixing feelings and landscapes. We try to figure out new scenarios and what could be possible that now seem to be impossible. What seems to be impossible in planning urban landscapes? So nature, with all its contradictions, is the new rebel citizen. And this is a picture that I dislike, because I don't want to see picture like this. This is something that speaks again about an aesthetic of landscape. So we don't want to have flowers in our city to say, wow, we have beautiful cities. No, nature is something completely different. It's something that we need, and we have to find a new balance with nature. Nature is always in evolution. We are nature. We are part of the nature. So one of the topics is not related with the coronavirus. Coronavirus is may be something that we have to offer, because we have to face, because is a let's say a problem in this moment. But we have many problems to look at, and we can't forget it, and we can't forget them. We have also to understand how to save many different landscapes all around the world. This one is related to wetlands. This one is about Amazonas problems with deforestation. This one is about climate, of course, changing and adaptation, so the problem with water. And this one is about the new cultivations, which kind of cultivation we want to improve. We can also now think about the roof, the green roof, but for community cultivation, to share food. We are thinking about it here in Copenhagen, so we are studying water food. And another topic is how we can design the new streets inside the cities, and how we can think about micro-mobilities and density. This is very important. I would like to improve new walkable cities. This is a square in Copenhagen, and 20 years ago they took the decision to remove all the cars, the vehicles here. And of course, Guayaquil. So the problem of density and the problem of the slums. And the new houses, how we can build new houses, rock houses with greeneries. Is it enough to design that or not? But surely for me, we have also to understand that this is not acceptable. We have to protect many natural landscapes all around the world. This is a 5-star hotel, and we can do that. We need to protect some specific interesting landscapes or remote landscapes. So we have to control the tourism in that sense. And also we have to control tourism towards specific animals, because people want to bring them and to have at home. And of course, also related with young people. And in all the narratives, each time a man is confronted with several alternatives. He chooses one and eliminates the others. But in the novel, almost inextricable, you can decide for all the alternatives simultaneously, Borges. So we have to face this, to understand what is different and to accept differences and to reintroduce with new design the sense also of biodiversities. And trying again to understand what is this 7. Is 7 the same for everyone? No, because numbers are never numbers. So the data, we are full of data, they always have specific interpretations. So that 7, more similar to 6, is the irrational feelings of passion. That 7, more similar to 8, is the responsibility to face the contrarieties of passions. So I finished the lectures in university at Politecnico with this topic that was a poetic lecture. So hug your passions, because what should be life without? Without an endless love and passions, without, for example, the unexpected, because what drives men to travel up rivers and cross deserts to come here is not only the exchange of wares around the market, but the desire of the merchant to share their tales. Calvino. This is for you. This is from my garden of instability. This was a rose. This is my 7. If you can see, it is still a rose. it is a dead nature? It is an alive nature? It is an artificial nature? Is it nature? What is it? For me, is my 7.
Thank you. Thank you, Raffaella. Nice to see also your work at the end. Very interesting. And exceptionally in time, I was very interesting. I noted 2 or 3 points that I want to highlight with you. I have to say that the first one that really touched me was the question of numbers and people. When we talk about people and but because you mentioned something that numbers for somebody are just numbers, if we are talking about numbers relate with people are human beings. And in the last month, we are used to see numbers, no? More or less 100,000, 30,000. Oh, it's not 30,000. Maybe it's 29,875 because each one of these numbers is one person, one human being, one life. So I totally agree that when we talk about people, numbers are a different category. And so I really appreciate the difference, imagining the difference. So when we talk about people, numbers are extremely important. Well, talking about urban landscape and public spaces, isolation is something that could not fit.
No, absolutely. I can't accept it. I can't accept it because it's a really contradiction. So I don't want to accept. Of course, we can be confused and lost about the difference between urgent and important. It's urgent now to face this situation.
To face and that was the third issue, because isolation, it's a cure, not a solution. So isolation is the cure for the urgent problem. That cannot be the solution for urban space. So we should think about different ways of sharing the common space, the public space, but we cannot imagine a future in which we do experience the public space in isolation.
Exactly.
That's something that it's coming from your, and there is one point just for the last minutes that was, thank you for the Estetica delle Margherite that is an issue that we have in common, and I think that it's very important. You highlight something very important as a difference between what is a landscape, what is a garden, and what is nature. So probably the 3 categories, there is a misunderstanding about sometimes the 3 categories are confused one on the other. And so thank you for giving us a very clear and passionate picture of what a landscape can be and how we should deal with landscape, or at least with a landscape that can be natural or urban, but in a contemporary way, finally, in a contemporary way. So we have just 30 seconds, but really, it's a candle.
In Copenhagen, I'm in Copenhagen in this moment, and I call it hygge. It means to have these emotions, good emotions, no, towards someone, and you want to share this situation in this condition. So thank you very much, Alessandro. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you for your talk, for your insight, for your input, and for taking part of our 24 hours at midnight. Grazie Raffaella.
Grazie a voi, eccellente questo format, veramente. Grazie Alessandro, grazie a tutti.
Ciao Raffaella, grazie.